Hello everyone, welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today I want to dispel this myth that Rasmussen is a far right pollster. Today we're going to be looking at what the Electoral College map would look like if you applied the crosstabs for the latest Rasmussen national poll. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so Rasmussen Reports has basically come under fire for being this, somehow right-wing pollster when they're one of the only pollsters besides me who will actually go ahead and break down polls that we sponsor. For example, I sponsor SoCal Strategies, which there is a link in the description down below for you to be able to donate to SoCal Strategies for us to be able to conduct more national and state polls. But Rasmussen is based off of, subscriber, funding and, ad revenue. That's how they fund their polls. So if they're not accurate, they're going to lose support. And, all these, they're so inaccurate. But when you actually look at their 5-period moving averages from 2016 and 2020, they were almost spot on. I mean, they basically had Hillary at about, roughly, 44%, it seems here, and Trump at about 41. And you see the final margin, about 2-point spread right there. Biden at about 50%. They had him at actually exactly 50%. And you clearly see here with Trump, he was at about 44. And this was the final margin right here. So clearly, they were far more accurate than most national pollsters. And right now with Trump, they currently have him at about 49%. And Harris is at about 43, 44% in their 5-period moving average, which is fairly fascinating. And this is their period moving average right about the time of October 25th, and that's basically stayed consistent with 2016 as well. So their 5-period moving averages, which is how you should actually be able to go ahead and see how accurate a pollster is, not just based on their final poll. You do actually see that Trump is running up pretty heavily against Kamala Harris, quite significantly actually. And if we break down these crosstabs, what's fairly interesting is that you see with the racial demographics, Trump's only winning whites by 12. So that is an underperformance from the last cycle. He won them by, I believe, 17 last time. So he does lose a couple points with white voters, which is going to be interesting in the map that I showed you. And I know you guys are thinking, what in the world was that map? The reason why the map is so wonky is because Trump is losing like 5 points on net with white voters, but he's gaining like 40 points on net with African Americans. Kamala Harris is getting 65% of the black vote. 65%. Trump is in the high 20s. And yes, they are oversampling Democrats when it comes to African American voters because of the response bias, but they've actually taken into account for this. Their sample was a D+2 sample, which yes, I actually think that the sample is going to be a little bit less blue than that, but I actually think that's a more realistic sample because they actually have independents above 30%. Most pollsters do not have that anymore. You see here, looking at Hispanic voters, Trump's ahead by 6 points. Biden won this group by like over 30 points last time. So you're looking at, yes, it's a small portions of the electorate, like 11%, 13%. But when you have these 40-point shifts with these groups, and you have states with 30% minority, populations, you're gonna have a really big alignment of the electorate, and Trump more than likely is maxing out with white working class voters. That's why states like the Sun Belt here looks really red. Like it's like Texas, I think, is 21 points for Trump on this. Florida's like 17 points. But Georgia and North Carolina, these are crazy. North Carolina, I think, is like at 14 points for Trump, and Georgia's like 12. Like, they're not even close. But funny enough, Ohio and Iowa are actually closer than Georgia and North Carolina are, which is very fascinating. They're actually slightly closer because Georgia and North Carolina have pretty sizable African American populations. Ohio and Iowa really don't, especially Iowa. And Iowa's actually, I think it's like an 11-point win in this forecast. So that's very, very interesting. But then New Mexico's like 6 points for Trump. Like, it's voting to the right of like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And I'm going to touch on the Rust Belt in a second because this is also quite interesting. Arizona is also a landslide because you have Hispanic voters moving to the right by this crazy amount. Same thing with the Nevada. And then what's interesting is Trump does lose with white voters. That's why you see the Rust Belt only be lean Republican, and Iowa and Ohio kind of being these likely Republican states, and Minnesota being likely Dem, while New Mexico is like likely Republican. Like you have these crazy shifts, right? And New Jersey is relatively competitive, so it's pretty insane. Like it's basically a 4-point win for Harris. And we also have Washington. Yes, this is not a mistake when I recorded the margins. Washington is a 16-point win for Harris, but California is a 13-point win. Washington has a way larger white population than California does. California has a lot of Africans, Hispanics, Asians. That's why it's actually voting to the right of Washington by a couple points. It even falls below the 15-point category. Now, a lot of these margins are still improvements for Trump. Like Colorado is only an 8-point win for Harris. Like, he does technically improve in all of the states. His margins are better. Even his New Hampshire and Maine margins, I think they're like 5 to 6 point victories each. And these states have a huge white population. So that's why you're seeing them still be in the likely Democrat column. But he still gains in every state. It's just where he gains may possibly be very unexpected. You may see these really weird gains for him in the Sun Belt, where he's winning the Sun Belt really easily in California. Connecticut, Delaware are going to be these, very easy wins. But the Rust Belt may actually be within a couple points. And what's pretty interesting is Nebraska's second is still lean Democrat. And what's fascinating is if you go to Wisconsin, like if you go to the Rust Belt, they actually vote to the left of the nation, which is really weird, right? And you even see Virginia is somewhat really competitive. And then Wisconsin is like a 1.5 percentage point win, and Michigan's like 1.7 for Trump, and then Pennsylvania is like almost a 4-point win. So it's like not even close. But Pennsylvania has a larger African American and Hispanic population than Michigan or Wisconsin, and so that's why you're seeing such a weird gain. And this actually would even make sense because Donald Trump has gained, or at least the Republicans have gained in net registrations in Pennsylvania the most out of any of the other Rust Belt states. So it would actually kind of make sense for Pennsylvania to kind of shift that way, even though it would technically be voting to the left of the nation, which is really interesting. But yeah, if Trump is losing ground with white voters by 5 nationally, but gains with Hispanics and blacks by like 30 to 40 points on net, something like this is actually pretty realistic. Minnesota does not have a large Hispanic African American population. Neither does Colorado. Illinois does. That's why you see it get so close. It's only a 7-point win for Harris, but I guarantee you if he were to be winning whites by, 25, he'd probably even win it. Funny enough, we could actually test this out. If he wins whites by 25, he's getting 393 electoral college votes. Like, he's even winning Illinois. Even if he wins whites by the same amount he did last time, he actually gets 341 in the electoral college. He would win Minnesota. He would win, Virginia. And Virginia is a state that could actually still go to him anyway, even in this forecast. He could actually still even win it in this scenario because Virginia, it's basically a tied state. It's essentially tied. And Trump's vote shares from here are actually pretty realistic because Trump in Wisconsin got about, if we look at 2020, he got about 48.8%. Here, he's getting about, roughly 49.8. So, again, somewhat realistic. And you look at New Mexico, he's getting like an outright majority here, which is really interesting. And you see, like, compared to 2020, the electorate's so different because the Rust Belt is still kind of voting how it does in 2020 with some of these states moving a little bit to the right, but you do have like Georgia do a complete 180 and like the Sun Belt just does a complete 180. But funny enough, Montana and Missouri don't really move to the right that much. Montana actually doesn't really move to the right at all. It actually stays the same margin that what it was from the last cycle. So that's also pretty interesting to take into consideration. So you may see an election where the former president loses support with like a lot of white suburban voters, but does so well with African and Hispanic voters that you may see a map like this where Trump is winning New Mexico by like 6 points and winning Georgia by 12 and winning North Carolina by 14, but only winning Ohio and Iowa by like 11 or 12. And like the Rust Belt's actually still competitive. And here's the best part about this. Even if Harris were to somehow pick off all the Rust Belt states, she literally cannot win because New Mexico would be such a large victory for Donald Trump. So even in that scenario, she still wouldn't even be able to win. She'd have to pick off one of the Sunbelt states. So that's why her path to victory is so, almost impossible right now, because when you really look at it, if Trump is really winning Hispanics outright nationwide, he probably wins New Mexico, Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada. And at that point, that already wins him the Electoral College, including, Iowa and Ohio. And so the Rust Belt at that point would really be fool's gold. Now, this is just based on one national poll from Rasmussen. I just kind of wanted to go on here and kind of show them, what their map would look like on an Electoral College map. And also kind of give them a little bit of credence, because they have been fairly accurate over the past few years when you adjust their 5-period moving averages, and their samples tend to be a lot better. Do I think the electorate's going to be D+2? Probably not. Are they probably oversampling for white liberals? It's possible. They may be. But I wanted to go ahead and show you guys what their crosstabs actually show. Like, funny enough, if you were to average out Rasmussen's polling and literally just use it, like, for your 2020 and 2016 election predictions, you would have gotten them pretty spot on. You would have been able to predict the elections pretty accurately. And so that's basically it for this video, guys. I just wanted to show you what the demographic trends for the Rasmussen poll from today showed. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.